Well, let's talk a little bit about also in regards to the head coach, how to build a roster and how much, because I have several questions lined up to how to build a successful roster. But first of all, how do you incorporate the coach in this decision making of a roster makeup?
Well, what I try to do always is to have the most options possible with the roster. So you get the players that can fulfill tasks that the team is going to need. So this obviously comes from the coaching staff. The team needs A, B, C, D, and you need to come up with options that are going to satisfy those needs. So for sure, all of the coaches are involved here in identifying the needs. You probably can testify this also. Usually it happens with scouts. Somebody tells the scouts that this is what the team is going to be needing going forward. Here we don't have a million scouts because, of course, this is Europe and not the NBA. But at the same time, I think that the approach and the principles that are behind the approach, the ideas and the steps that are behind the approach are pretty much the same. And then we just do what teams do in the war room. We just close the door and say, we're not going to get out of here until we have a decision. Knowing, as I mentioned early on, what the hierarchy of the club is. So who has the last word? The club. When you're in tune, and you work with some kind of shared purpose and understanding each other, and this is one of the big fortunes that I have with Andrea. It never happened that I'm overruling. I might be saying, like, I think you should trust me on this because I really believe boom, boom, boom. And being together for so long, the two of us, and having reasonable success together, he knows how I see things. I know how he sees things. I know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis, for the good and the bad. But for example, in signing Rubit, that was our last signing this year, we basically went, player by player, listing them all. It should be the same thing with all players, but sometimes it's just like, boom, we agree on this, and there's nothing to discuss. In the case of Rubit, there was no alignment, no agreement on the profile of the big we should have added. So we did what the NBA teams do. Okay, what are the 10 needs we have? Prioritizing them also. And then all the options that are available on the market that are on our short list for our money, we see who basically hits the highest score. And Rubit was the second highest score. But we still went for him. And I think it was the right move.
How early do you start in this process? Like, Nicola already said in a podcast that I had with him, was that you always have to live in the future. So in the current season, you're already preparing for the next season. But how early do you start identifying the guy and then start potentially recruiting, if that's a possibility, through the agent to figure out what the situation is? Like, is there a certain time period during this prior season, or is it in the summertime, where it could be also too late? Like, how do you know that it's not too early and not too late?
Well, you're talking about the first team or the main team, of course, not the whole program.
No, yeah.
Well, it depends. You can start, targeting guys knowing that I'm sure it's going to slip out of the market, because, of course, if we compete money-wise with others, there's going to be the first 12 teams, then there's going to be 10 feet of crap, and then there's us. Okay, so which is okay. It's fun for me, and at least it gives me, it stimulates me, coming up with ideas. And this is going back to 1 second to the Trinchieri topic. This is the beauty for me of working every day here. And whatever we try, even the things that don't work, are always stimulating. They would always be worth trying. Okay, and there is a thought process behind it. Sometimes you target the guys in January. Sometimes you target the guys in November, and you can actually do stuff. Sometimes you have to wait until everybody else overlooks the player, or until he feels bad on another team. The standard deadline is usually the Final Four for EuroLeague market. After the Final Four, you know this better than I do, because you've been the bigger fish in the pond, and you still are, because you're the NBA basically. So if you make a phone call in your position to an agent about you name the player, the player is going to be wanting his agent to go till the very end to explore the possibility. Mm-hmm. And you, if you're me in Bayern Munich in this moment, you have to wait, which means that you need to have option A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, because that's the only way to sleep at night. Because if you put all of your stock on one guy, and then this guy ends up signing somewhere else, you're dead. And that's when you lose your sleep. And this is one thing I learned working in Biella, because very often we would put all of our stock on one guy. Most of the times it worked well, and sometimes we got screwed at the very end. So
that's why, like, sometimes the bigger fish, let's call it the big clubs, or their phone calls, I think, are few and far between, because whenever they call, they're in a position of power. It comes at a high premium. And the medium level teams, they may have to do the recruiting a little bit more often, a little bit more phone calls, a little bit more information gathering, and then build the relationships a little bit longer with the agent or with the people around that person, in order to be already present if the other things don't fall through. Is that, for me, a correct way to understand of the process?
Yeah, it is. There's a movie line in Moneyball movie where Brad Pitt says, if we think like the Yankees here, we're going to be losing to the Yankees there. And as long as you have this kind of approach, and you know who you are, because this is one of the trickiest things of Bayern Munich, for example, because people see the brand and they say, like, wow, you know what, you guys are going to be signing boom, 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 boom. That's not necessarily the case. And I mean, we're not the poor relatives. I would say we're poor, but not relatives at all yet. Maybe we're going to get there in the future, and maybe we're going to get a big enough fish. But I think that our recruitment follows an unconventional route in that sense. We're not going to go there and offer more money than other teams. Of course, I don't mention the names of those teams, but we need to be credible in the working environment and the basketball proposal we come up with. This can only happen if we have a very clear identity and a very, very strong culture. And I can give you an example. I think that, for example, Darrun Hilliard, he had higher offers than ours. And but we proposed him to do something on the court with the ball in his hands that he has never been given the opportunity to do. It comes to a cost, because, of course, you use him for what he's already good at. He's not going to make much mistakes. He's going to be a safe landing. But the safe landing for safe landing, he is going to go for the bigger salary.
You have to offer something. You have to offer something different.
I can tell him, look, it will be growing pains. It will be this. It will be that. But this is who we are. If you come in with the approach of rediscussing who you are, and play another hand of poker. So you've been on a Final Four team. Actually, two Final Four organizations, because Baskonia is a Final Four organization, and CSKA, no need to say. You come here on a team that will celebrate every single win, because this is who we are. Then, if at the end of the season we had enough wins to qualify for the playoffs, we're going to go nuts like last year. but we do not approach things for this reason. We are going to come up with something for a guy like him that we are in the intermediate step for a guy like him. So you have to know who you are in order to know what to offer to these people. You're going to be working every day. You're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing that. You're going to be playing this way. So there's obviously the other, the flip side, which is this might cost us games in the first part of the season. And of course, nobody likes to lose, especially coaches. But when I say you need to handle development, we competed great statement that Joe told me was, look who we have on the roster, on the payroll, and look who they have. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of how many years have the Juan Summers been in the league? How many years have Austin Day been in the league? And so on and so on. Tariq White, I don't even remember the names, but, and as I said, you can still get the wrong guy, but you need to have the right perspective on what you're doing every day.
And you have to deliver on the promise as well. And that's another thing that also Andrea and me also discussed in the episode prior. Whenever you're recruiting a player, there's certain things that you have to deliver on, and if the player doesn't deliver on that, then the role could also change. So that's also a possibility in certain regards. But
it's on the player then.
That's what he said. Yeah, exactly. Do you factor in chemistry when you build a roster? Is that something that you take into account whenever you're recruiting players and put the roster together? And if so, how much? At what premium does it come? Like how much is that of a priority in terms of chemistry? Because for with all due respect, as we're talking, like it's in the medium level team competing to be in the playoffs and competing to get if you get to the Final Four. It's like you said, you celebrate every win, and that's a humble and a very great attitude to have. That's, to me, like I think you can be successful with the underdog mentality no matter what team you play on. Just the big fish is sometimes they lose the underdog mentality and they rely and they anticipate wins to come easy. But for the other level, let's call it other tier of teams, I think chemistry is a huge factor. And that's why my question is that something you seek out, or do you think that you try to navigate somehow with the roster, with the players you put into the roster, that you're hoping that this comes together as the season goes along?
Well, I think that hoping sounds a little bit too much like flipping the coin. Okay. There's a difference between knowing stuff and getting caught in what people say. For example, I think that the best chemistry we had here in Munich, the team with the best chemistry, was the most unlikely team to find a winning chemistry. But last year, it happened that these people, for a number of reasons, and some of the reasons are unrepeatable, okay? And that's why we changed so much, because we have to take these reasons into account. Everybody overperformed. Everybody and anybody had the chip on his shoulder. We were coming out of, I would say, kind of a tragic season. And as a club, we wanted to prove. And the players we signed, they all needed to prove. They clicked right away. For example, okay, sticking to the question, you can assume certain things, you can know some facts, but whether they're going to click one another, it's a different story. And you can reduce your margin of error, but nobody's going to guarantee you that it will work. Just like nobody can guarantee you that it will not work. I think that you need to be doing certain things because how. Okay, if you don't do certain things, they will never get together, or most probably they're not going to get together. But for example, how many times did you hear like, we have a great group of guys? That doesn't necessarily translate into good team chemistry, because the difference between a group of people and the team is that the team foresees roles. The group doesn't. You're part of a group. I mean, you just walk in, they're going to accept you no matter what, or not accept you no matter what you have to bring to the table. Here, you have to make things clear when it comes down to the role. And this goes back to what we've talked about. When you give a player a role that he has never had and you recruit him. And I mean, the rest is how, for example, in a conversation, you and I are going to listen to each other. What you're going to tell me is going to enrich my point of view, and so is the other way around. So how much are they willing to sacrifice of their own stuff in order to have team success? Again, last year, I always give the example of Baldwin. When I signed Wade, and I've been after Wade even the summer 2019, you know, everybody was like, stay off him, stay away from him. He's a troublemaker, blah, 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 blah. You know, Wade hasn't finished on a high note in the Bundesliga for a number of reasons, but mainly because he has never played. He had never played that late into the season. So did Jalen Reynolds. In the COVID year, when the biggest indulgence you can allow yourself is to smoke a cigar on the staircase going out of the gym after the biggest win in the history of the club. So, you know, these are things that need to be taken into account. So paradoxically, last year, COVID brought us together. This year, okay, I don't know what's going to happen from now on. It seems like the situation in Germany is going pretty bad. But we did not have that thing that kept us together the whole time. The flip side is that the guys got burned out. Not most of them, but some of them got burned out. Crucial guys. We're not going to make it if Wade doesn't perform. And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, there's a number of considerations that you can make that is endless, you know, and in order to keep it real, yes, you need to get your facts straight. Yes, you need to find what is on the paper good basketball chemistry. So I think this guy pairs well with this other guy. And the rest is, you know, how they deal with each other every day. This is my belief.
The pairing is important. Of say who likes to play with whom, what roles, the personality in tune with the role that he's going to have. Sometimes, I mean, there's delusional imagination of a role, and then the character comes into play if the role does not align with his character.
Well, Ben, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, I think that the Wade Baldwin is a guy, for example, that is super smart. He's a super intelligent kid, okay, highly educated, and he's a good kid. Now, I think he walked into the locker room and he took a good look around and he saw an alpha male standing in the corner, and he goes like, "Oh, I understand. This is his team." And regardless if you really believe that or not, okay, but he respected that. So I believe that when people talk about chemistry, they imagine, you know, they talk about universal love and people loving each other. No, I think that there has to be mutual respect in order for them to function with each other. And respect of the game, respect of the personality, and a big time accountability. I mean, Wade has always said, like, Lucic is our leader, this and that. Now you see people say like, yeah, you have one record with Lucic and a totally different record without Lucic. Yeah, but you know, yeah, you imagine if you cut the head off to a human being, you know, you would have a body that doesn't know where to go, you know, and this is exactly what happened to us.